everyone, Leslie O'Leary here. Welcome to my presentation, Dragon's Breath. I'm really excited to bring this to you. As I was putting it together, I found it really interesting to be able to step back and see the path that my artwork has taken. And so I'm really thrilled to be able to share that with you with my insights. And I also love Asian symbolism. Many of you know that. So that will be tied in through the dragon. It is Year of the Wood Dragon. And so that ties in beautifully with what I'm going to present to you. And without further ado, why don't we just get started? So let's talk about dragons. There are two types of dragons in the world, and us in the Western part of the world, we know dragons of being a symbol of evil, and they fly, and these Western dragons, they breathe fire, taking out the entire village. These dragons are, like I said, they're winged and they breathe fire, and they're described as being greedy and keeping hoards of gold and other precious treasures in their lair. And so Western dragons, scary. Here's a typical Western dragon. I actually really love them, but they always have fire under their breath, and you can always see the fire within their eyes. And on the other side, in Chinese mythology, these dragons are depicted as wise sages. They are compassionate creatures. Most of them are wingless, and these dragons are compassionate and love to help humanity out. The Chinese dragons typically breathe clouds. And here is, you see a lot of Chinese dragons around Asia. They're still depicted to be somewhat ferocious. They are also known as gods, and they are also one of the 12 zodiac signs of the Chinese people. We are, like I said earlier, we are in the Year of the Wood Dragon. So just keep those two dragons in mind, and I will bring them up as we go through this. I'm going to start where I came into NIADA, and this is one of my pieces. This was one of my earlier pieces. These are called the Charm Girls, and you can already see how interested I was in the Asian feel of things. You can see her hat here. It depicts like the top of a roof line, and these little ones held gourds, and within each gourd was enameled piece. This is ladybug, which is good luck. And then here we have butterfly, another one of them, and butterfly represents our mirrored self, our heart-centered. You need two wings to connect the butterfly to heart-centered. All these pieces were about 23 inches tall, silk mohair hair, and mostly silk, everything, the body and everything silk, with a sculpted understructure for the head. And then things started to change for me as I was able to go to China, Japan, and South Korea and visit those lands. I came back with even more enthusiasm about the Asian symbolism and the Asian cultures. And I was able to purchase, actually back here in the United States, I was able to purchase these three hats. And they are what really started to pique my interest. In the two outer ones are called Dong Festival hats, and the middle one is a lotus hat. So these hats, as I was finally able to discover, these hats are usually made from a Chinese mother to her infant, and they were made with protective qualities embedded into them. I found this really interesting, and at that time, it really struck a chord with me. The protection of a mother really hit home, and I made these dolls for many, many years. And here is a picture of a Southern Chinese woman and her infant on her back. And you can see there's charms on the child's hat. They're always there to care and to help the child in any way that it can. So now we start to step into the Western dragon. And in this part of my life, the Western dragon, I could always feel it breathing just the back of my heels, just that hot little fire on the back of my heels. The dragon guards things in his cave with his perceived bounty. He can't make use of it or them, but he just ends up guarding it. Let's start with goldfish. Goldfish was the first piece that I created using this Asian symbolism. And goldfish is such a wonderful creature. It is about prosperity. It is about perseverance. The goldfish has the ability to swim upstream against all odds. The other thing that I had on my pieces was that little red dot that you can see above the eye. And I had read somewhere in my eons ago of research and study that the red dot symbolizes a protection against evil entering within. And I have researched and searched to find out where I read that. I have no idea, but I so love the beautiful concept of it that I continue to use it today. Next up, we have dragon. And dragon, we're going to talk about more as this goes on. Dragon is about dignity. It is about justice, strength. It is about overall peace and happiness to all others. It is about protection and strength. Another little note here is you can start to see under her little jacket there that there's a little piece of like a greeny yellow fabric sticking out. That is a piece of vintage kimono. And this is about the time where I really started to incorporate vintage kimono into my pieces. And the mask on this dragon's behind the eyes, that is a piece of vintage kimono. Another thing is in all my pieces, I make everything like the whiskers here I made. And if I don't make it, then like this little head top here, this is all vintage pieces. And the tiger is protection. It is fierceness. It is also about the joy of life. And again here, this piece, they are about 23 inches tall, all silk. And then the faces or the heads are sculpted in clay and then overlaid with the silk. Over the years, my silk has changed. I used to have a direct source from Japan and lost that just over time. And so I'm always searching out a beautiful matte silk. And so far, I've been lucky to find it. And here we have Lotus. I think this piece in particular, I think you'll find interesting. Lotus is about coming up from the muck and the mud and rising up through the water to find the sunshine above the base of the water and to grow into something beautiful. So it's about adversity and again, rising above it all, no matter what life throws at you. Now, the interesting thing about this piece is I was showing this at one of the conventions, and the floor was tile, and this was on a pedestal, and someone walked by and knocked it, and it fell onto the floor and cracked its cheek. And as artists, you know how long it takes us to put pieces together and then to travel and take them. And we want to make a living at this, so we want to sell it. So I knew months of work had just fallen and cracked. And so I had to step outside for a moment and just catch my breath and not cry. And then I realized Les, you teach all your students how to make dolls, and you made this doll, and you always help them when something happens. And so I figured, you know what? I can correct this. I can fix this. I have the ability to do it. So I brought it home and I repaired it. And believe it or not, the next week it sold. So always have faith in yourself and always know that you can persevere above the muck and the mud. And here we have seahorse. For many years, I scuba dived, and so I love underwater creatures so much. The seahorse is especially interesting that they mate for life, and it is the male that ends up carrying the eggs. And so seahorse is about community and being together and love. Again, all silk. The band on this one is actually a Japanese silk brocade. And again, the sequins are all vintage. Anything on here is vintage or made. And life is really about balance. And with balance, we persevere and we stumble, but we always come back to balance. Every story needs a start. Perhaps not an ending, but at least a start. And this is the time in my life when the dragon started to show up, its fiery breath just starting to feel the warmth of it on my back and on my heels. This is my dad. My dad lay in his bed in the hospice center, the last of his earthly life. But as he told me, he had no woulda, coulda, or shoulda left. He felt that he had lived his life as he had wanted and to its very best. Realize that life is seasons, life is a cycle, and the seasons will always change without fail. And if we can utilize each season, we will experience it at its greatest rewards. This is the time when I created the 4 seasons. We started with Spring Delicate Blossom to take advantage of the spring of our life of hope. This is when my dad was first diagnosed with brain cancer, and we had all the hope that we could muster. It is the end of a difficult period after getting that diagnosis, but it is also a beginning of a new life cycle. This is the time when opportunities arise. Flowers blossom and creatures come out of their hibernation. The same applies to life. Even during a challenging time, we too can find great opportunities. It is our duty to be filled with hope of renewal and to take advantage of the springs when they pop up in our life. We never see all the beauty in our lives. We hope. Summer plum rain. Take responsibility for summer. Might be a time to step back after planting the seeds of our spring, our opportunity. We will be ready for summer. This is a time when we can reap the benefits of our work. It is the time when we realize that we've been faced with a challenge and now we can take action on it. While it is still a time of hope and comfort, it is also a time to be aware. We must stand up for life and protect its value, respect its value. This is a time when we can step back and be grateful what has been in our life and for these moments that we now have together, the bigger view, the bigger picture. Autumn, fall, beautiful haven. Protection in autumn, the time to go within. This is a time to open ourselves to learning, to find the lessons that previous events have taught us and put everything into realistic perspective. Only by doing so can we be ready more to handle what is coming. It is time to go within. It is time to find our protection and to share what is important, especially with a loved one where you know they're on their way out. Protection, beautiful haven. Handle the winter peace. Every year, winter comes. In all of our life, death comes. We deal with it by preparing for it. Know that none of our lives ever go smoothly, but there are also great joys. There are also great lessons. If we live each season fully, when the time for death comes, we can experience it hand in hand with grace and with peace. So now enters the dragon. So my dad passed away. My mother had a breakdown, which went into some legal complications. And then through all that, I ended up getting a divorce. So every aspect of my life was on fire. And I found that I was becoming quickly turning into ash. Couching tiger, hidden dragon, Chinese mythology. It refers to hiding your strength from others. And I think this was a crucial turning point for me. As I stated at the beginning, the dragon, the fire-breathing dragon, had always been my mother, and she was always taking credit for everything that I had done in my life. And so through that, I learned to hide part of myself. So I still had something that was my own. But this fire, this turning into ash, started to change something within me. I found during this period of time, during this period of ash, that I really needed to step back and cocoon. And my work at this time ended up becoming moths. And moths have the never-ending faith that all will be fine, that the light will always be there. Moths reveal that there is a new direction to take. and that all has been hidden within, and you can spread your wings and come out. This one is the ghost moth. The ghost moth is light from within. It does not have difficulty moving through the changes of life. And this is what I find interesting about art and about my journey in art, is that many times I create the piece and then I go to find the symbolism, and the symbolism is always connected to that part, that art journey, that part life journey that I'm in. So ghost moth, you can see the colors are much more subdued, vintage kimono being broadcast there, but you notice it is on the back of the wing. So the front of the doll is quiet. Her kimono here symbolizes her cocoon just starting to open. This is Luna Moth. Luna Moth is the source of light, of rebirth and renewal, new beginnings, of spiritual transformation. And the last of this series is Tiger Moth. And Tiger Moth is hiding from ourselves, emotional energy, pushing away from drama and towards something closer to our heart. These three pieces, these three sisters went to the same collector. I really am so touched that the person who has this in their collection really understood what these people or these dolls represented to me in my life. So, how do you slay the dragon? You follow your bliss. You find where it is. Do not be afraid to follow it. So I had months, maybe years of cocooning and staying within myself. My fire-breathing dragons were all behind me now, but you still carry a bit of that ash within you. And I was just starting to feel a glimmer of creative life, of actually life coming back into me. In order to rise from its own ashes, a phoenix first must burn. So it is starting to find that inside you that can help you rise again from your own ashes. I will say that it is thanks to this woman. I felt it was very important that I put her in here. It almost makes me cry. Mary, she was my therapist during this time, and she was the one that actually saved my life, helped me get through the ashes, helped me find my phoenix rising. So thank you, Mary. Phoenix rising, I started to become stronger in myself and feel safe within myself. And all of these things were coming from within me. They weren't outside sources as they had been in the past. They were really starting to come from who I am and starting to be able to spread my own wings without fear of the fire-breathing dragon. And I'm going to talk about dragon for a moment. This is another dragon hat. This is on its own, no doll with it, just the hat. And again, dragon is protection, justice, strength. And there is a counterpart to the dragon. Dragon is known as male, and the phoenix is known as female. So on this hat here, and actually on all my dragon hats, the outside will be male dragon and the interior will be of a phoenix. So balance of life. So here you can see it is also, again, that circle of life. It is the dragon and the phoenix, each holding their own strength. The real dragon is in you. So like I was saying, is that when you start to realize the things that you go through in life and you start to be able to reach inside of you and bring that forth, that is where your change will start to happen. And because of that, I met a dragon. This is my husband, Sean O'Leary, who is actually a wood dragon. He is born in the year of the wood dragon. That is also what 2024 is, the year of the wood dragon. So it is within him that I also found my safety, my protection, my true love. The Chinese ancients believe that if you breathe life and energy into your own spiritual dragon or your greater self, you create change that breathes life and energy into all, allowing you to ride the dragon's expansive spirit to a zenith of endless possibilities. Breathe life and energy into your own spiritual self for endless possibilities. This is where my work started to change. This was one of the first pieces I created, and she sat there for a good year. The spark was there, but I wasn't quite sure where she was going to go yet. You can see the whole body changed, the head changed, everything in my work had changed, except the fact that I was doing figurative art. The journey of the hero is about the courage to seek the depths, the image of creative rebirth. This is Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey Circle, and it actually called to me, and I studied it for quite some time. My initial thing that I was going to do, my initial call I was going to do, so you can see in the lower left corner, the call with the arrow is pointing to, I was going to create a doll for each one of these. But what ended up happening is I went from the call to the return. That piece that you saw came into emergence cicada. Cicadas nestle under trees in the roots, and they live most of their juvenile life in there. And then they come to life slowly. They climb to the top of the tree, and that is where they can expand their wings. I did a lot of study on cicada. These wings are made of paper and then printed and drawn with actual cicada wings onto the paper. And then her body represents what the cicada body looks like. So it's segmented, and the underside of that, which you cannot see, is a bright green brocade that is really beautiful. The back of her hat holds the cicada's 5 eyes, so she is always aware what's going on behind her. The tree skirt is a very expensive piece of silk that I distressed and twisted into the bark of the tree with the roots hanging gently from the bottom. And then also I want you to take note here where she has in the middle of her chest is her heart, and it is actually exposed. Here's a close-up of her. This is something I used alcohol inks to dye her entire body. There's no control with alcohol inks, so I just put them on and hoped for the best, and I actually love the way she turned out. She is with a deer collector also, and I am so happy that this person also received her and received the message that comes with her. And then returning home is the bee, the gift. And this bee, again, is done with segmented pieces as a bee body. And if you look at a bee closely, they have this fuzzy little head and this fuzzy little, I'm going to say, like wrap around their shoulders. And so I interpreted that into more of a rock star mohawk on her because she is that type of bee. The wings, again, are paper and made to look and mimic bees' wings. The interior of this piece is actually a piece of silk brocade that I purchased in China, and it was the perfect underskirt for this beautiful silk that looked like a bee's body. And then she is coming out of a flower, and yes, she does have a stinger. The reward is psychological wholeness. And at this point now, this is where I started to reimagine my pieces. And since I had started my journey with goldfish, I now was going to continue with goldfish. And so this is a piece that I did. This is the first piece that I did in this creation. And I was starting to become braver with what I was doing. And this is a piece of silk brocade that I distressed. And it just so happened to distress out to this orange color. Now you can really see the beauty of the design in the black. I'm just going to switch back so you can see how beautiful that came around the skirt's edge. The interior is vintage kimono. And then again, you can see paper. The goldfish on top are from paper and from silk fabric, a silk brocade. Here is the hat itself. It's removable. You can see the two goldfish above, and then you can see the beautiful green Chinese brocade that I used in the interior of the hat. And the back of the fish, you can just peep here to see a little bit, and that is out of a silk brocade. Here's a close-up of her. I felt on this piece it was important to have something in third eye. And so what I did is I looked up Chinese mehndi. And so I took the designs and I stacked them and I fit that over her face. And so now what I'm going to let you do again is go through these pieces that I've created recently and this feeling of these, and then I will come back to you. So I wanted to stop here and talk about Frida. You can see all these past works that I was doing were very much about my whole heart and my passion and love of Asian symbolism. And Frida started to enter my life decades ago, and I had created a workshop for a Frida doll, but now it was time to create a Frida of a one-of-a-kind piece. And I wanted to really carefully think about how I was going to express her and how I was going to express myself. So first off, if you're not acquainted with Frida, or if you are acquainted with her, she had a lot of injuries in her life. As a 6-year-old, she developed polio, and so her right leg was shorter than her left leg, which I depicted in this piece. And then at 18 years old, she was in a horrific accident that broke many bones in her body, and also she could not have children because the spike from the train car went right through her pelvic region. She had issues with her back, and over her lifetime, she had 32 surgeries. And you can imagine in the 20s and 30s what that was like. And so there are 32 stitches done across the broken column. From the accident, she had 12 injuries on her right leg. That was the polio leg. And so I represented that by the blue butterfly. Then I wanted to create her skirt, but to hold tradition, but to step off of tradition. So it does have a band going around it, as most Mexican skirts have a beautiful embroidery around it. And what I did instead is took painterly things, because she was a painter. So I did the hummingbird that is the Mexican symbol of love. So I put that around the top band, and around the bottom band are blue butterflies, azul mariposa, which are also known as rebirth. So hummingbird and butterfly were very dear to her. And then, of course, flowers. We all know Frida for flowers. So I took painterly flowers and appliqued them around the skirt as well. And then I did top stitching over each of the pieces, which you can see here in this close-up. Just that is my take in sewing. So I merged the two together. These are her shoes. One of her pairs of shoes are known are the magenta boots that she had after she had one of her legs amputated. But I created these as wearable boots. There is a medallion, a Chinese medallion. She had a different medallion, but the Chinese is my push into that. And then if you can see, the right leg or sole of the foot has more of a lift. And so she wore shoes with lift so that she wouldn't have the obvious limp. And now you can start to see like where I came from, the protection of the hats, and through these beautiful pieces of re-emerging, re-changing, re-expressing a lot of my pieces. And now we come to the Black Madonna. Very different. If you really look at the genre of things that I've done, very different. But I think the Frida helped me step into this piece. It still has a symbology and a spiritualism to itself. Black Madonnas are beautiful. They aren't in any churches. They're actually mostly in Europe, and it is the townspeople that will take care of the shrine. I find this a fascinating concept, and just us as human beings and who we are. So this is Black Madonna. This is her undergarment. I worked with this. What I took was, this is a vintage kimono piece of fabric that I took, and then I cut it or tore it into strips, and then put it back together with a contemporary silk striped piece of fabric, holding rainbow colors, holding all of us with inside of it, and then did a really loose top stitching over it. So this is her underdress. And then her overdress, I took fabric and I dyed it and I distressed it. And you can see where I took the strips and then twisted them and sewed them to end up coming together like this, adding an extension of roots of like who we are as human beyond the piece. So this goes around the outer dress, and then here I have the tassels that hang in the front of her handmade tassels, so I could really coordinate the colors that I wanted to use. I'm going to step back just for a moment so you can kind of see how this is all put together. So you can see here's the undergarment, here's the overdress, and then this is a silk pleated organza behind it, vintage lace, and then a vintage, I'm going to say, tulle or netting that is put together with beads to represent a crown on her head. So let's go back through to here she is up close. There's also, you can see a little bit of the gold beads in there. The vintage netting was also have spot checked with some gold metallic paint, and then ran down the border and across pieces, and then of course around her eyes. Communication with Mother Earth is the highest form of prayer, sits on the inside of this piece. And finally, we come to the magician. This is one of the last pieces that I have most recently done as this recording. This one came from a collector and wanting this for her husband. It was a little out of my realm, which is fine with me. Of course, it was a male, and so that I usually do women. And then what I really wanted to accomplish with this is, you think of a magician, he has a top coat, he has a black suit on. I really wanted to expand on that. So I got my black silks out. The jacket has a drop into the back with a crossover collar, and then his vest is of a Chinese brocade. So I really wanted this to be much different. The ascot around his neck is a shibori piece of silk. You can see this a little bit more close up. The challenging part on this piece was his hair. So I wefted, well, I dyed some silk yarn and then I wefted it together. And then, so it's in strips on his head, and then I cut it into a man's haircut. And so you can see the crossover of the jacket here, and then you can see through to the brocade of the beautiful vest. This is the top hat created all by hand. Of course, he had to have a rabbit within his hat. And this is the interior of the case that I made. So you can see all his tricks are within it. The person, the magician who, wife who purchased this, is actually a retired doctor, and he goes to children's hospitals and he does magic tricks for them. And so now he has his own magician, and Eugene Berger is one of his favorite magicians that he has taken lessons from. And so this is a book on him and some of his quotes. And this is a quote from him: "All magic is about transformation. The performance magician is telling you that you are the magician of your own life," which really trails back into everything that I have been saying all the way through. Is like, you are your own dragon. Your dragon is within you. You are your own magician. Your magician is within you. The magician. finally, this is what's on my work table right now is Bloom, and she will be coming along. And I really am excited about this piece. I have a vintage kimono that you can see in the back that I'm going to disassemble and use for the body of her gown. And then these beautiful embroidered pieces of flowers will nestle somewhere on her. And so if we look back and we start with the protection of the hats, and then we go through the quietness of the mauves, the reimagining of all the protection pieces, jump out a little bit with Frida, and then coming into the magician, really starting to rotate this around, and then coming back with Bloom. And Bloom will lead right into my new series called The Weavers. The Weavers are going to be the dreamer, the healer, shadow dancer, cloud walker, illuminator, and the keeper of the keys. That's a few years worth of work right there, isn't it? And in the Chinese culture, you can see this red string, this red thread coming through. The red thread symbolizes that we are all connected. We all have a red thread that leads to each other. And then I'm also going to be creating creatures of the divine. I'm very excited about them. You are just going to have to wait and see what they are about. And thank you all for being with me and for being on this journey. I am so happy that you have been here with me. Thank you.